Hey everybody, welcome back to another lesson with 101 Guitar Lessons. My name is Lauren. Thanks for joining me today. We are going to be talking about how to make switching between chords easier, okay? There's a couple different approaches that we're going to take. Before we get into it, please make sure you press that subscribe button because we have tons of lessons, a great amount of content coming out every single week, and I wouldn't want you to miss it, all right? So thanks, like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate your support. Let's get into the lesson. So, there's a real challenge when you're starting to learn how to play the guitar. I mean, it's tough enough just to kind of get your fingers coordinated and then to memorize the shapes of each of the chords, especially let's just talk about open chords right now. So for example, if I was going in between, I don't know, an E and an A, all right, or an A and a D, I have to remember what is the shape of the A, what is the shape of the D, and then I have to move my fingers and get them to actually coordinate together and change at the same time. It's a tough thing to do. So if you're having trouble with it, don't worry, you're not alone. And let's talk about a few strategies that you can use to actually get better at it. So let's use an A and D as an example. So a straight A major chord would look like this. Let's take a close look. And then a straight D major chord would look like this. We'll take a close look. Okay, now we want to get from A to D. How do we do it? Well, a couple different approaches. Number one, you want to be able to see if there's any physical connection between the chords. Are they sharing any notes or any of the same fingerings? Well, between A major and D major, no, they're not, okay? Not in the sense that where my fingers, they don't stay where they are. However, in this particular case, I can go from an A to a D by keeping my third finger on the second string and sliding up one fret. Let's take a close look. So here I'm playing the A major chord, and I'm going to lift up these two fingers and keep my third finger down. So my third finger staying down on the second string, and it's sliding up one fret. And the other two are popping one on either side, right, as is the D shape. So although there isn't a physical connection in the sense that it's staying still, there is a physical connection in the sense that it's staying on the same string and just sliding up one fret. And I'm just popping my other two on either side of it. And there's your D. Same thing holds true, of course, going from D back to A. I lift up these two fingers, keep this finger down, slide it down one fret, and these two pop over to complete the A. So, as you see there, between A and D in particular, there is a physical connection, and that's great. I mean, it's not immediate, it doesn't stay still, but my one finger, my third finger in this case, stays on the string and just slides up one fret, up or down one fret, depending on which chord I'm going to. So that definitely helps to smooth out that process between A and D. Another example would be D and E. So let's take a close look at that. So here's my D major, and to go to an E major, I have that similar kind of physical connection with my first finger staying on the third string from the D major, and it just slides down one fret, and these two fingers pop over to complete the E major chord shape. Okay, so from D major, my first finger stays down, slides down one fret, and then pop these two over. Same holds true in the other direction. I lift up these two, first finger stays down on the third string and goes up to the second fret, bring the other two around. So there are physical connections that you can find between many different open chords, okay? You want to be very careful in looking to see if any fingers stay on the same string and just slide up and down one or two frets, because that's a great connection to have, and the other fingers will pop over, okay? Now, sometimes you don't have that connection. There is no physical connection, let's say, between C and G. Let's take a close look. So here's a C major chord, and here's a G major chord. Now I like to play G with holding down the third fret on the first and second string. I just like the sound of it, but it doesn't matter. You can play it this way or this way. All right? So between C and G, there's no physical connection. My finger doesn't stay on any of the strings. However, there is a visual one. Now, if you notice in C major here, these two notes, so I've got on the 5th string 3rd fret and on the 4th string 2nd fret. For a G, really these notes visually just pop over. They have the same kind of physical relationship. C major, G. Now, of course, with G, I'm using these two fingers. You can play a G like this. I'm not a big fan of it, but you could. But just visually, you can see that the relationship between these two notes stays the same. It just moves over one string each. And of course, I changed my fingering around. So it has a visual target now from here to here, and the other fingers will pop into place because I've memorized the shape itself. So C, G, and of course G going back to C, same thing. It goes over one string each with these two fingers. And then I've got the rest of it. So, just to recap real quick, you don't always have a physical connection. When you do, that's great, and capitalize on it. When you don't, look for a visual connection, a visual similarity that you can find in between the two chords that you can then use to visually anchor yourself to switch between one chord to the next. Sometimes it's very challenging to do that, and there's really nothing, hugely in common, but you can always find something. For example, if I went from a C major to an E major, and we're using all major chords just because it doesn't really matter. You can use minor chords too. But if I went from a C major to an E major, what connection would that have? Well, let's take a close look. So if I'm going from C to E, well, there's no physical connection, that's for sure. But, this note is going down here, but I'm not playing E like this. I'm playing it like that, like I'm switching my fingers around. So my first finger, visually, is just going from the first fret of the second string to the first fret of the third string, from C to E. So that can be a really easy visual connection for me to connect those two chords. Whatever really works for you is what matters. Take your time, really dissect the chords and figure it out. Now, if you're having trouble with the chords in general, remembering, oh yeah, your fingers go here for a G and your fingers go here for a C, then that's a whole separate issue. You have to memorize that by itself first. I had a tough time with that when I was learning how to play. I couldn't, for the life of me, remember that this was a C, this was a G. I just didn't remember the names of the chords. I remember the shapes and how they physically felt, but I couldn't remember what they were called. So if somebody said, oh yeah, let's jam on this tune and it's G, D, and C, I'd be like, okay, you start it. And I just sort of copy the shapes that their fingers made. Definitely don't fall into that trap. But yes, definitely find each of the chords separately. Make sure you work on the major, minor, dominant. And if you don't know those chords, check out this playlist over here, because this is a great playlist with all the chords, all the open chords that you could ever want to know for for all major, minor, and dominant 7-type chords. Memorize those, and then it's much easier, obviously, to switch when you're not having to think, how does an E7 go? Oh yeah. No, you want to be able to know it, and then going from A7 to E7 is not as challenging, okay? So, 2 things. Look for a physical connection. If there's no physical connection, look for a visual connection. Take your time. And remember, if you're playing a song, let your arm be a bit of a metronome, always down on the downbeats and up on the ands in between. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Keep it simple. When you're first learning a song, don't worry about the rhythm so much. Just maybe do downstrokes on like... I just made up whatever progression that was. But the point is, it's very simple, so I can take my time and concentrate on, are there any physical connections? Are there any visual connections? What can I do to, switch between them? And it gives me space in between the strumming to actually get to the chord that I need to get to. If I can't get there on time, keep the rhythm. And if you keep the rhythm consistent, even in between chords, see, I'm getting there. I'm slowly taking my time to get to each chord in between. It's keeping the momentum of the song going, and it's forcing you to kind of hurry up and get there with your left hand or your fretting hand. So that's another trick that I would say. Keep the rhythm going, keep it simple, and that'll help speed things along. Your hand will be like, oh, I gotta catch up, and you'll eventually get there, and it won't sound as broken up, and it's hard for that to sound like a song rather than... So that sounds a little bit more like a song, even though I'm screwing up, in between the chords, the rhythm staying consistent and driving the groove, and you're slowly catching up with those chords, and it'll eventually sync up. You'll get there. So work on it one step at a time. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. I'm happy to answer them if I can. And if you have any requests for lessons, that's great. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel and the videos, and check out the past lessons. We have a ton of great content and more coming every single week. I wouldn't want you to miss it. All right, remember, guitar playing is a journey. It is not a destination. So learn to enjoy the process of learning. Enjoy the journey, and I'll see you guys on the next lesson. Take care.